Candidates, I'm going to allow all this because you've brought the lightning round segment in under time budget. Nice job. For the next, please hold the applause.
I hated the lightning round.
For the next segment, we're going to give the candidates an opportunity to quiz each other. For the next 10 minutes, each candidate will get to ask one question of one of their colleagues up here, and the candidate answering will get 1 minute to respond. The first questioner will be Jefferson Smith, the next questioner will be Eileen Brady, and the third will be Charlie Hales. Is that clear enough? Okay. Jefferson Smith, who would you like to query and what would you like to ask?
I'll ask Eileen. Oh, you now want me to ask the question?
You ask me. Yeah, get to ask me now.
I'll do that. I'm fine with that.
We've done so many of these. The rules are always.
By the way, I want to correct my carbon tax answer. I do want to correct. I apologize for cheating. But the yeah, if it replaces another tax. That's actually what I think. Yeah, my question is, when was the first time you swam in an Oregon river?
A long time ago. I think it was, it might have been the Illinois River in '86.
And again, we're under budget. I love
It's not
this.
accurate. No, I don't know.
Would you like to rebut that, Jefferson?
No, it's fine. Your answer is fine.
Eileen Brady, who would you like to quiz and what would you like to ask them?
Well, Jefferson, I was going to give you a really hard one, but you went so easy on me.
Whatever you want.
Go for the hard one? What do you think? Go for the hard one or the easy one? Oh man, they're asking for it.
Really?
Okay, they're tough. They were tough on Trey too. So here's the hard one. In 2009, you voted for House Bill 3058, which would have fast-tracked liquefied natural gas export terminals in Oregon.
Audience.
In 2011, you changed your position and voted against House Bill 2700, which was virtually the same bill. Both were strongly opposed by the Oregon Conservation Network, and actually I'm sure you had a good reason, so this is your chance to set us straight.
Yeah, the first time the bill came up, I was convinced by two colleagues in the legislature I deeply respect that it was a linear bill, it was not an LNG bill. After the vote, it became pretty clear to me, before too long, it was an LNG bill. When the bill came again and I had another chance, I voted no.
And Charlie Hales, it's your turn to ask one of your fellow candidates a question.
Okay, well, we don't, softball questions apparently aren't what this crowd wants, so I'll stick with the tougher ones. Eileen, I'll make you subject to it since you visited that on Jefferson. So we've all had a lot of forums together and have heard each other's speeches a number of times. I won't say too many. And you tell the story pretty often about how you had to go through a difficult, expensive, comprehensive plan amendment and zone change in order to site a store. Tell me a situation in which you would say no to a business seeking a comp plan amendment or a zone change.
That was an interesting experience. This was at our Seven Corners store at the corner of Southeast 20th and Division. And it actually cost an additional $240,000, and it was about a 6-month delay to actually get that plan through. And what it was to the south of the store was a part of the parcel was zoned residential. And they were going to grandfather it in. And then what happened was we had to put a dumpster next to the building on that lot. And when you have a dumpster, you have to have basically a canopy shed, which is a good idea, which you adhere to the side of the building, and it sheds the dumpster so the runoff is not as contaminated. When we put that shed roof on, it actually triggered a rezoning requirement to rezone that property neighborhood commercial. Oh man, time.
Charlie, do you feel like you got the answer there?
Well, you got the first part in, which is what happened to you.
Yeah.
But tell us a hypothetical situation in which a business wants a comp plan amendment and a zone change, because those are kind of the big deal in Oregon land use plan.
If I may, timekeeper, how are we doing?
We are about 3 minutes to the next round.
Okay.
I'll do it real quickly. So let's take that example. First of all, we should have known about that.
Where you'd say no. Where you'd say no. Not where you'd say yes, but where you'd say no. I said, give me a hypothetical example of where you'd say no to a business that wants to get over the highest hurdle of a comp plan amendment?
No,
and
I'd
zone
say
change?
let's do it sooner. Let's inform people ahead of time. Let's make the costs for comp plan amendments much more affordable. And I can't give you a no. I'm giving you
saying,
how I would
when
adjust
would you
it.
say no? Give me a situation where a business comes to the city, says, I want to amend the very comprehensive plan of this neighborhood. Tell me when you'd say no to that. Tell me a situation where that would just be not appropriate.
Well, there's any number of them.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's hear one.
There's a piece of property is zoned mixed use, and someone wants to zone it residential or neighborhood commercial, and it doesn't fit inside the comp plan. So you'd say, no, that's not the plan for the city.
Thanks, candidates. That was fun. I wish more of the debates had some function like that in there. We're going to move on to a portion of the program where we dig a little bit deeper into the issues that are important to those in the room and the entire city. You may notice we have a panel with us up on stage. Doug Moore, Executive Director of the Oregon League of Conservation Voters. Ivan Maluski, Conservation Director of the Oregon Chapter of the Sierra Club, and Andrea Durbin, Executive Director of the Oregon Environmental Council. Thank you all, partners. And they're going to help out by offering each candidate some questions. We have a total of 9. We're going to do our best to get through all of them here. 90 seconds, candidates, for your response. 90 seconds for each response. And as we begin here, please keep in mind the first question here, we'll begin with Jefferson Smith in answering this first question. Panel, what do you have for us?
Right. Is this on? Candidates. Portland has a toxics problem. Some parts of the city have air pollution that is 100 times higher than safe standards. And some of our schools have unsafe environments for children. As mayor, what would you do to address these problems in the city?
Everybody hear that all right? Sorry. It's a question about, do you want to repeat it, Andrea?
Sure. I'm not sure my mic is working. Is it working now?
Hold it, yeah.
Eat it.
Eat it. So Portland has a toxics problem. Some parts of the city have air pollution that is 100 times higher than safe standards. Many of our school environments are unsafe for children. What would you do as mayor to address these problems in the city?
We begin with Jefferson Smith.
The first thing I think we need to do is see the whole picture and recognize the principal sources of where toxics are coming. That includes industrial uses, that includes automobile and truck uses, it includes public buildings, it includes homes, and we should have a set of strategies for each thing. The first, if we take transportation, is we need to make sure we're not going to make it worse, or at least not as much worse as is the ambit, as is the possibility of a politician who goes and tries to raise a whole bunch of money, makes a whole bunch of promises, wants to build a whole bunch of projects, and then, oops, pretty hard to do all those projects and then still comply with the climate action plan or with a goal to reduce toxics. I would not, for instance, another thing we need to do is start retrofitting buildings. I pitched to the governor and helped pass the Cool Schools bill, not because I thought that would be enough, but if we started doing that sort of thing also in the city to reduce pollution in public buildings and increase opportunities for job savings, not only to pollute but to reduce pollution, we could start unlocking a little more partners in that enterprise. Another one I would do is enforce more and gather more good neighbor agreements for where there are areas that are particular hotspots. For instance, in Northwest, another one I think we have to look at is the Rose Quarter. Right now we have, according to an op-ed, well actually according to researchers, as demonstrated in an op-ed by Ben Candid and Lou Frederick, that already in inner northeast Portland you have among the dirtiest air in the state and even in the country. We'll make that worse, of course, if we try to build a $4 billion highway interchange system.
The question goes next to Eileen Brady. Again, it's 90 seconds.
It's almost tragic what we have going on with some air quality spots, and there's many of them. As we know from the school data survey that USA Today actually built a database around, we have literally thousands of children that are exposed to air toxins in this community that should not be. We had one community organizer in Northwest Portland dedicate her life and probably about 2 years to creating a good neighbor agreement with ESCO that now has moved us in a positive direction. We need to do that around the city, but it's an equity issue because you're not always going to have a community organizer with that much time to be able to pull together a community that's fairly well off in that case. In our low-income communities, this is an equity issue, and the mayor needs to ensure that we will have that same level of community organizer and leadership for all of these neighborhoods. And I have said on several occasions that I plan to do that. I will ensure that we have leadership. I will be involved myself in building out these good neighbor agreements between neighborhoods and actual industry polluters, toxins.
Charlie Hales.
I think I agree with those strategies. Certainly the neighborhood, the good neighbor agreement in Northwest with ESCO is a model. We should use those more in terms of point sources, but on a larger scale, we just need to keep moving aggressively to implement our own climate action plan. Keep doing what Friends of Trees is doing, plant more trees, keep creating more habitat, keep preserving more places like Riverview Cemetery for stormwater, keep doing all the things that we're doing, and then redouble our efforts to keep reducing vehicle miles traveled. We have succeeded in part here. We have 27% of people commuting by means other than a car, but still, that's only 27%. We've got to do a lot better than that. So continue doing what we're doing in terms of transportation choices and mode split. Keep doing what we're doing in terms of greening our city, and then focus on some of those point sources, and then see if we can't find ways to replicate what was done expensively with citizens at the lead in Northwest more programmatically by one of our public agencies or some team of them.
Our next question comes from Ivan Maluski.
Thanks all for being here. Mayor Sam Adams and the city of Portland showed great leadership in helping convince Portland General Electric to retire the Boardman coal-fired power plant within the decade. Over the next 2 years, Portland General Electric will be deciding what power to replace Boardman with. Will you support action by the city of Portland to push PGE to replace the Boardman coal plant with energy efficiency and clean energy instead of natural gas?
Candidates, did you catch that?
Most of it, yeah.
The question was, will you support action by the city to push PGE to replace Boardman with efficiency and clean energy instead of entirely natural gas? And we start this round with Eileen Brady.
Absolutely. We have to have a strategy around renewables. We have to commit to our climate action plan, and it's going to take community consensus to do that. It's going to take putting unusual stakeholders in a room who may not have the same agenda coming into the room, like I did when I was involved in the Oregon Health Fund Board. We had a challenge of providing health insurance to over 100,000 children in Oregon, and we brought a very diverse set of stakeholders together who were very hostile initially. Business people, insurance executives, hospital executives, and labor leaders and patient activists. And we're able to carve out a consensus that moved the entire state forward. So that's the type of approach I would take. I don't shy away from complex issues. We have a goal of reducing our carbon emissions dramatically, and we have to deal with the energy-related components of that.
Charlie Hales, again, candidates, 90 seconds.
Yeah, again, I think what we need to do is do our own job well. Make sure that we are advancing our own climate action plan, make sure that we're buying green power, make sure that we have retrofitted and improved our city buildings. Of course, we'll advocate with PGE or any other player in those changes that we're making, whether it was when they decided to close their nuclear plant or other major changes in the electrical system. But the best thing we can do in the city is help our citizens continue to reduce demand, make the incentives for solar installations even better. What's been done in Northeast and Southeast is a great pilot project. Do that in more neighborhoods. Keep making the city of Portland a model of conservation and alternative energy in everything that we do, and therefore make the need for new generation less.
So is that an affirmative to replacing it entirely with efficiency and clean energy?
Oh, I think that's the goal, and that's what we would push for, but we have to do something about it, not just advocate for it.
Jefferson Smith.
Yes, but I don't think it is the most important or most challenging thing we'll have to deal with respect to coal. I think we also have to start thinking even before today about how we are going to address proposed coal shipments going through our city. We know already that the Powder Basin coal that they're talking about is extraordinarily difficult to handle. We also know that we don't have obvious local tools to limit it because we're largely preempted by interstate commerce. But we have to do what we can with the EPA to see to it that either all types or at least some types or at least uncovered coal is classified or reclassified as a hazardous pollutant, that we make sure that it doesn't happen either at all or free, or if it does happen, there is a fee for mitigation or for cleaning up. And I don't yet have the answers to this, although I've heard and thought of some. But if we're going to steel ourselves, part of the challenge that's been happening with the environmental community is you are getting outgunned. It didn't used to be true 30 years ago. It used to be the best set of political players in the state. For the last 10 years or so, that hasn't been the case. You're getting outgunned, you're getting outthought, you're getting outspent and outorganized. And part of what we have to do to correct that is think a couple steps ahead. And what's happening in Boardman is critically important. But if we're only thinking about Boardman, we're not 2 steps ahead, I assure you, the shippers of the coal are 3 or 4 steps ahead.
Our next question, would please hold it till the end. I know it's hard. The next question comes from Doug Moore.
Thank you. Portland has significantly increased light rail and streetcar use over the past decade, as well as making it safer to bicycle. What is your vision for the region's transportation future, and how would you prioritize transit needs?
We begin this round with Charlie Hales.
They asked Samuel Gompers one time, what does labor want, the famous labor leader? And he said, more. So I think that would be my short version of the answer. Again, more of what we have done, more of what has made Portland a model to the nation. You know, people come here every week to study what we've done right. But again, we've only achieved a 27% mode split. And again, we have to bring everybody else along, not just the people in this room. And part of my responsibility as your mayor, if you give me the job, is to continue to build that broader majority that supports what we're trying to do. That this is also about kids getting to school on foot. It's about health. It's about human health. It's about healthy rivers. It's about things that people care about who aren't thinking about the climate as much as we all do. So I don't think we're getting outgunned so much as we need to once again reach out to a much broader cross-section of our city. And I'll tell you, having knocked on 20,000 doors, probably some of yours, Portland's citizens want to do the right thing. But we have to communicate well with them and keep them on the train with us philosophically. We can't just be smarter and more tactical. We also have to be inclusive and bring everybody along. And I really believe that we can do that here.
Jefferson Smith.
Less, and I'll explain what I mean. The most sustainable building is the building that's already built. The most sustainable trip is the one that is shorter or doesn't have to be taken. When we pushed a bunch, and when I say we, I mean the city council in the 1990s pushed a bunch of infill housing in East Portland, simultaneously then and subsequently gentrifying inner north and northeast Portland, and then subsequently failing to invest in basic amenities, parks, sidewalks, streets, etc. in East Portland. It has meant that lots of people, not only have we had, 12,000 members of minority populations moving from inner East Portland to outer East Portland just the last 15 years, it also has increased the length of commutes. It also has increased traffic. Right now, only 11 or 13% of East Portlanders use active transportation. It's not because they're richer and have nicer cars. It's not because they're healthier. In fact, we tend to have more students, more seniors, and more poor people, all 3 factors of which would yield greater use of active transportation, greater use of bus service, more walking. We have less. And the real reason, the primary reason we have less, some of it is because we're tired at the end of the day. We're more likely to work with our hands and less likely to be in a cubicle. But some of it is because it's hard to go over to Home Depot and figure you'll get a fridge and strap it on your back and get on your fixie and ride over to 132nd and Mill. We have to see the whole picture when we plan the city. The environment can't merely be a yes or no question to particular environmental fetishes or fixations. It has to be a commitment to making our city work.
Eileen Brady.
Well, I was saying maybe we should get Jefferson a bicycle.
I have a nice one. What you should get me is a New Seasons Market somewhere east of 42nd Avenue.
On the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
audience, please, please, please.
And I can tell you, I can't reveal all the secrets, but I can imagine you're going to get your wish, Jefferson. So in terms of transit, I don't think this is the era of more streetcars. I think we are in an era where we are looking at prioritizing maintenance in our Transportation Bureau, not just for our roads, but for our bicycle infrastructure. Even you can look at projects that we've started. One of the things we do is we plan and we build new things. Even if sharrows on our bicycle transit lines, we have not built in a program to maintain those sharrows. We spent $500 million building them, and we can't actually maintain them. Bus rapid transit, I think, in East Portland is probably part of our future. We have an opportunity to have model bus service in East Portland. I certainly would like to work on that project. Implementing the 2030 bicycle master plan, particularly the low-cost options around neighborhood greenways, bike boulevards, where, for instance, on Northeast going from Vancouver to 39th, we've turned the stop signs the right way and put in turn lanes, and we have now effectively slowed traffic in the neighborhoods using that system. It's been very inexpensive. We have tripled bicycle ridership in that neighborhood as well on that route. Those are the kinds of things that I'd like to focus on, cost-effective, very realistic transit options.
Thank you, candidates. We're to Andrea Durbin for our next question. Panel, please feel free to speak up right up into those microphones.
So candidates Smith and Brady, you already mentioned that pollution in Portland affects low-income and communities of color disproportionately, including health impacts. What we would like to know is what you will do to address environmental inequities in Portland, and what you specifically hope to accomplish.
We begin this round with Jefferson Smith.
90 seconds isn't enough. This is where we've been screwing up. This is where our sustainability movement that has inspired me and a lot of others in this room to politics, to public service, has not been doing nearly enough. One, and I don't hate it all. I want a minor apology for harping on the CRC yet again. But I know who's going to get asthma from that project. And it's not a bunch of people in Laurelhurst, and it's not a bunch of people in the West Hills. It is people in the flatlands and in the basin and along the I-5 corridor. So it's not just what we're going to do, it's what we need to be careful before we do or what we need not to do. I already said something about coal. I already said something about shorter trips. Let's talk about things to do that might not cost a tremendous amount of money. I think we could do more learning gardens and community gardens. I think we could take some of the 60 miles of unpaved roads and not just pave them, but turning them into linear gardens. I think things would take a little bit more money. Is one of the reasons why I prioritized public buildings over homes in energy retrofits, although I like both, is because I know that public buildings not only impact the budgets of all of us, but are more likely to be used by all of us. And I think retrofitting public buildings for, including schools, for better energy efficiency as well as better lighting and better airflow would be another thing. And then the bigger thing again, we got to impact how we analyze political problems, because part of the challenge is a lot of who we're talking about right now is not enough empowered within our political community, maybe not even enough in this room. And we have to be thinking about the overall picture not only of our city, but of the power that shapes our city.
Eileen Brady.
First, I have to offer a correction. The sharrows was not $500 million. That was the cost of, potentially the cost of the harbor cleanup. So here's the thing. Parks and open space is an equity issue. Having access to parks, being able to walk to a park after school, being able to take young children to a park, this is a true equity issue. I am a vocal supporter of the E205 Parks Initiative that Commissioner Fish has been promoting, particularly for East Portland. We have an inequity in our park system. We're known for our spectacular parks. But one of the things that's key to me in this entire election and the next chapter of Portland is focusing on the inequities, particularly in East Portland. East of 82nd, there's about 140,000 people that live there. 40% of our school children live there. There's over 70 languages spoken at the David Douglas school system, and they have a legitimate complaint about not having a seat at the table. The big equity issue that we can jump on immediately is expanding our park system east of 82nd.
Charlie Hales.
I agree with that. We got to start on parks in the annexed portions of Portland, in East Portland, with the bond measure that we all worked on, that I was proud to lead, that built the East Portland Community Center and John Luby Park and Lincoln Park and Ed Benedict Park. But we're not done, and that's why the E205 initiative is good, and I do support it. We need to finish the job, as I said earlier, of having parks within walking distance of every neighborhood. We also need to make sure we have access to the transit system on an equitable basis across the city. We can't have 20-minute neighborhoods with 60-minute bus service. So I agree with the concern about maintenance. First, we have to maintain the street network that we have for all modes, whether it's bikes or cars or any other skateboards, any other mode that we choose. But we also need to make sure that we have a citywide and region-wide level of transit service that allows people in the neighborhoods that Jefferson was describing to be able to use that choice. Then we've got 60 miles of unpaved streets and missing sidewalks. And again, that's a human health issue for those kids as well as a safety issue. So I've proposed a systematic effort over a long period for the city to dedicate a capital budget to get on with that, rather than the almost outrageous policy that we have today of expecting those people that live on those streets to tax themselves to build it.